did some research on what's being taught out there about interdependence in a relationship, and I found another good thing from Esther Perel. And what I say is, this is another flawed therapy model. This is another flawed therapy model, because here's the thing: it sounds really good, and I'm gonna share a little bit of it in a minute. And I'm very excited to talk about this. So stay with me. We're gonna learn some really good things here. The concept of interdependence, it's like I said, it sounds great. But like, of course, that's how a healthy relationship needs to go, and then of course that's what it needs to look at. But here's the problem with it: this is another therapy model that is taught in a classroom and then tried to be transferred over into teaching this in therapy or couples therapy. But there's no practicality to it, because it's not considering the reality of the dynamics between men and women, or between people, that relationships don't work this way. And we're going to talk about why. I'm going to talk about the framework of women being with good men, and then the relationships between men and women. I'm going to just read a little bit, pardon me while I read, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. So this is from Esther Perel. She's a world-renowned relationship expert. She does live couples counseling on her show. People really like that. They really like Esther Perel. She's done a lot of really great things, very respected, very esteemed in her profession. So an interdependent relationship is about mutuality. It's showing equal concern for each other's well-being. And she said there's 4 features of an interdependent relationship. And listen, as I say, you're going to be like, yeah, Karen, that's it. That's good. That's how we have a healthy relationship. Because I read it and I was like, oh, that sounds really good. So number 1 is the number 1 feature of an interdependent relationship is healthy boundaries. And that a boundary is any limit or mutual agreement for how to navigate the psychological, physical, emotional, and sexual parts of a relationship. Second feature of interdependent relationships, clear communication. That the success of every close relationship hinges on communication. The third feature of an interdependent relationship is personal responsibility. An interdependent relationship, each partner takes responsibility for their actions. They apologize for their mistakes and don't blame each other when things don't go to plan. And number 4, mutual trust. Interdependent couples trust one another to be faithful to boundaries they've established together. They support each other's personal interests and goals and enjoy time alone or with their own friends. Sounds good, doesn't it? Like, yeah, that's a healthy relationship. And in a world between 2 healthy people who are able to do that, that is what a healthy relationship looks like. Absolutely. But here's the problem with using that as a model to try to change your marriage or relationship and have a healthy relationship with each other. And I'm going to talk about this from the framework of being a woman, and what we know as women that we can't deny these behaviors. We might not want to see it, and you might not like it when I talk about it, but they're true. Here's the problem with boundaries. So we're going to go through each one of those features of an interdependent relationship. I can feel myself getting excited. My foot is tapping down here. So here's the problem. As women, with our walls up and being out of control of our emotional states, not in control, we are incapable as women of having boundaries, and incapable of following through with our own boundaries that we agree to. And here's why: because with our walls up and our emasculating natures and the protection that we put up as women, we are selfish, we are self-centered, and we are manipulative. And here's the thing: we want our husband to have boundaries. We want them to follow the boundaries. But as soon as we're asked to be held accountable to those boundaries, we want to do what we want. We hold the double standard. You need to follow this boundary, but I don't have to. And what I've learned about myself as a woman and working with other women, we are not good at keeping our word and following through with our word. We lack integrity and we lack character with ourselves. Think about it. For the women watching and who are open to hearing my message, think about how poorly we keep our word to ourselves when we say we are going to do something, when we say we're going to change something in our lives, or we're going to do something differently. We don't keep our word to ourselves. We're the first person to break our own promises to. So how are we supposed to follow through with our husbands or a partner to keep our word to them? We don't keep our word to ourselves. Our word means nothing. So how are you supposed to expect your female partner or wife or woman to follow through with boundaries? And I know for myself, it's like as soon as I don't want to, and as soon as I think I'm right, like, pardon, I don't cuss on my videos, but F you. No, that's not, that doesn't apply in this situation. So we don't have character and integrity to follow through on our own boundaries. We don't. So the second feature of interdependence, communication. Women are horrible at communication because we have a woman speak. When we know we do, we are extremely poor communicators, especially in our marriages and to our husband. We expect our husbands to read our minds, to know what we mean when we say confusing things. And it's a really interesting dynamic between my husband and I now, where I'll say something like, hey, we live in Colorado, and my husband and I love to camp and we like to kayak. And I'll say, hey, do you want to go camping next weekend and kayaking over here? And he'll stop me now because he's gotten strong enough in himself, and he is starting to understand the woman speak. And he'll say, Karen, do you want to go camping and go kayaking there? Because I won't say it. I've learned to, and I've built that muscle, but again, I'm not perfect. I'm human. And I am a woman. So we have this woman speak, and we expect men to decipher our code and decipher our communication. And something else I've learned about myself and in working with other women is that we don't even know what we want because we don't know ourselves. And we also don't want to take responsibility to say what we want or say what we want to do or say what's important to us, because then the responsibility falls on us and we are adverse to taking responsibility, because we're scared of the consequences of how it might turn out if I say this is what I want and this is what we do, what I want to do, and then how it turns out. So we're not good communicators. That's why this doesn't work. And then personal responsibility. That's the third feature of an interdependent relationship. I've already been talking about it. As women, we don't have a sense of responsibility and accountability. We want to point the finger out. We want to put the blame on our husbands. It's the very reason a lot of us as women get married, is because we don't want the burden and responsibility of our lives. We want somebody else to share the burden with and somebody else to blame when it doesn't work out. So we don't want to take responsibility. And ladies, we know it. As soon as our husband says, hey, you said this and it made me feel this way, or hey, you did this and it really hurt me, we don't hear it. We jump back with our excuses and justifications for why we said what we said or why we did what we did, and enforce to our husbands that they are wrong. You're wrong for feeling that way. You misinterpreted me. That's not what I meant. We will not take responsibility until we're taught and we want to. But the fourth and last feature is mutual trust. I posted a short yesterday with probably a very triggering title. You cannot trust a woman. We are wolves in sheep's clothing, and we manipulate to get what we want. So there's no mutual trust. And here's what this one said that I thought was really interesting, is that interdependent couples trust one another to be faithful to the boundaries they've established together. They support each other's personal interests and goals and enjoy time alone or with their own friends. What we have to know as women, and what men need to know about women, is that our whole purpose of emasculating our husbands and emasculating men in our lives is because we don't want them to be successful. And I had to see this about myself and my marriage, that unconsciously, before I got it pointed out and before I could see it, I wanted my husband to fail, because that allowed me to feel stronger and in control in the relationship. And I was terrified that if he got strong in himself and he was successful and he went for his own dreams and his own goals, that he would leave. So we are invested in keeping our husbands down and keeping them weak. And it's not until we want to actually grow and we want to pursue our own dreams and goals that we will be a supportive partner. But with our walls up and our emasculating ways as women, we are not capable to be healthy, responsible partners, because we're not a partner to ourselves. And we will tear down our husband's dream. because we don't have dreams of our own and we don't pursue our own goals, and we keep ourselves small and we hide in life. And then we emasculate our husbands for them to do the same. And let's not even talk about like guy time, right? Or like letting your husband go take time with their friends. Like, don't you go play golf on Saturdays? Don't you go hunting? I grew up in the South. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. My dad's a hunter. My brother's a hunter. And I can remember, and I love my family very much, but I can remember the women getting mad because the men going hunting. And we don't want them to do that. We don't want them to have their own goals because we want them to do what we need them to do or what we are not willing to do for ourselves. So if a woman can learn to be happy in herself and drop her walls and stop her emasculating ways, and she's with a good man, this is what happens naturally. And you don't need to practice interdependence, but don't fool yourselves thinking you're going to try to implement these in your relationship when we have these woman ways. So the solution, and what I talked about in that video, is we have to provide what we want another to provide to ourselves. Otherwise, we are victims. And what people hear in that is, well, then what's the point of a relationship? But I do need these things. And the key is that we have to learn to provide them to ourselves so that we are not victims when they are not provided. And guys, you're right. Like, a part of a healthy relationship, this is just part and parcel with a healthy marriage and a healthy relationships: sex, love, respect, care, fun, kindness, communication, trust. Yeah, of course, all those things are part of a healthy relationship. But the key is we don't have healthy relationships in our society. Nobody's ever been taught. And what we do get taught, or what we do read, like in marriage counseling, is actually codependency. We have to learn to have these things within ourselves. And what happens, the nuances, is what happens when we provide to ourselves what we want another to provide to us. And we depend and rely on ourselves in a healthy way as we find our happiness internally. And happiness, I define as feeling good about who we are and having a healthy relationship with ourselves. When we do that, then we have the intimacy and care and love and respect in a relationship. That's what happened for my husband and I. That's what I teach couples. When I learned to be happy in myself and began to see my husband as a good man, he's naturally a good man, so he's caring, kind, and loving. So when I stopped my emasculating ways, he re-engaged in the relationship. I was a whole person in myself. He's a whole person in himself. And I would argue we have the most intimate, close marriage that has ever existed. And I don't say that with an ego or conceitedness. What we have is very, very special because of our willingness to be independent in ourselves and then bring the whole of who we are into the marriage, and it works. And we have a dance and we have a closeness that I never, ever could have imagined having in a relationship or in a marriage. And it works, and it's beautiful. Because we're healthy in ourselves and we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, then that gets mirrored back in the relationship, and we have all the healthy parts of a relationship. We have sex and intimacy and trust and love and care and fun, but it doesn't come from this of an interdependency or a codependency. It comes from this.